So how'd you like the new intro? I'd love to know. Make a comment. I will be watching. But anyways, let's get right into it. Welcome back to another monthly market report. Today we're going to be reviewing the August stats. And you noticed, or maybe you didn't notice, that I titled it, Winter is Coming. Not what you want to hear, I'm sure, that the word winter, but I want in today's market update to help paint the picture for you as we lead up to the winter months. So don't worry, I'm not forecasting snowflakes just yet. So let's go in. Last month I mentioned that July, it was actually the closest in sales that we've had all year long to the same time last year. It was only off of sales from 2017 by 4%. This month we sat with being off by 7%. So this is now the second best month of the year when we're correlating it to last month. So that's a pretty good thing. I also mentioned though last month that we would be seeing some month-over-month declines in sales now that we've put the peak selling season behind us. And this is indeed what's happening. What's expected to happen is happening, both in sales month over month and also declines month over month in price. Now, not by a ton though, so don't go getting worried. It's just a slight adjustment that we're having, and it's seasonal and we expect it. Now, one thing we did see though is a larger increase in new listings this year versus last year, again in August. So we continue to speak about this: less sales, more inventory, which just places us in a buyer's market across the entire city and across all price points and property types. So with that being said, let's jump into some takeaway points from this month so that you can bring some market knowledge with you, whether it's the water cooler at home or with your spouse or significant other. So let's go right into some visuals, some of the graphs, because this is, we're going to help you paint that picture that I just kind of glossed over here now. So we're going to pull up graph 1, which is going to talk mostly about kind of the sales and the inventory picture. So as you can see here, the top graph, I've created a red line and arrow there, and it's showing going back to our most recent peak, 2014. So 15, 16, 17, and then now 2018. That top graph is basically flat. And what's that is that sales. Year to date, in August, we're seeing that there's not a lot of changes. It's kind of steady eddy, nothing new to preach, nothing new to talk about. But the other thing is that upward graph, the second graph, which is the arrows going upwards. And that's unfortunately that inventory story. So when I'm telling you less sales and more inventory, this is the graph that is painting that picture in such a way. So you can see year over year, these last few, we've really seen quite a bump in the inventory. So that's not what we love to see, but it is what we're faced with. So now we'll cue over to the second graph. But yeah, this graph is talking about two things again: sales as well as new listings. So while sales year to date, we are still showing that we've had the lowest sales in about a decade, year to date up to this point. But the good thing, and it's been continuing all year long, is that new listing business that have come to market hasn't really changed. Year to date, as you can see on that bottom graph, it's a giant flat line. So, even though our inventory story is higher, it's because we've got residual income. The new stuff to market isn't drastically different than what we'd expect and what we felt for basically a decade. So again, nothing to totally worry yourself with, but here's the visuals to show you where we sit. Now we'll flip over to the third graph. This one's an interesting one. It might scare you, but don't get too worried. Talking about the seasonality of the year, what I'm showing you here on this little graph that goes up and then comes down quite quickly is that by this time of the year, we basically lose all the ground we have in terms of year-over-year price inclines. You'll always see a little bit of a bump even in our slower market this year, throughout the busy season where the prices will inch upwards, there's more demand, so that's going to happen. But then by now, we've wiped away all of the gains that we had earlier in the year. And then we'll see it slightly decline through till the next busy season into February, March, April. So that's just a visual to show you. The graph is a little bit more steep than I want you to concern yourself with. We're talking minor variations in price. And then the last graph we'll go into is this one, which I'll hint on a little bit more in the future discussion, but it shows, it's a big long graph. This is every type of property. This is every district. There's a bar for every district in every type of property. And this is year over year price adjustments based on the benchmark price. What do you notice here? Every bar is going down. Now, some more than others, but then there's these two rock stars that are winning. And you're seeing those are the only two districts and property types out of all of these bars that are actually showing a positive year-over-year price adjustment. So what this means, again, and I'll talk about this later, is there's a big variety here. But the trend right now, and the trend is what we expect, is to see that decline. So that'll be enough with the graphs for now. Hopefully it paints a bit of a picture that you can wrap your head around. I pulled out a couple key facts, actually 3 of them from August to note. Number 1 is this. With increased inventory, we continue to see the days on market continuing to climb higher. You'd expect that. We're seeing it. Citywide, we're up by about 19%. And that brings us to about 50 days on market as an average days on market that you can kind of use as a benchmark. How every area and price is different. And like I said, so it ranges across the entire city, but in general, we're 50. Last year, we were about 42. All right, point number 2 is this. Apartment market is the only property type that continues to see new inventory, less new inventory than it did last year. So it's helping its fight to come around and give us some good news about the apartment world, which has been negative for such a long time, and why you're seeing these condos being able to sell a little quicker than we might have thought, because it's less new inventory. It's actually got a negative total new inventory versus last year numbers. It's the only property type that's doing it. So good on it at the right time. Number 3 is this. The attached market, which is semi-detached properties as well as row, continues to be a tale of 2 markets completely. The row product is starting to really outperform the semi-detached world, the infills, which is really oversupplied right now. And I think if you're an infill seller, you're probably noticing that. All right. So let's dive quickly into some specific stats that are broken down for the detached, the apartment, and those attached segments, so that if you are interested because you are a single family homeowner, you're going to get these specifics here, and then we can always dive into more if you ever reach out and make some comments. So detached world is simply this. Sales year over year, 16% down. August was only 6%, but still year over year, we're down 16% in overall sales. But then the flip side is the new listings are up by about 7% year over year. So that's why you can see things shifted. And then days on market, again, the majority of homes that sell in a given market, in Calgary especially, is the detached world. So it's driving a lot of that days on market that we talked about earlier. It's up a whole 22% year to date. All right, we'll quickly whip over to the apartment segment. Sales, we're only down 2% in August and a 7% all year long. So that's where I'm telling you about the apartment market is fighting back. It's doing the best in relation to how last year was. And this is the win. The new listings are down a full 5% over last year's numbers. In August, it actually was down by 15%. So that's a great news story for the apartment market that continues to fight back and climb back. And then days on market year to date is only seen 12% year to date increase, which is less than most of these others. So good news there. And then we'll quickly hit on the attached, right? That's that semi-detached in row to give you a gloss over. Sales, 14% year to date decline. New listings up 20%. Right? So that's again not the equation we want to see. And then the days on market as a result, because both of those numbers aren't small, are trending us upwards to 51 days on market as our average. Row home is better than this. Sales are only down 4. New listings are up, are down year to date by 1% only. And then days on market are just creeping a little bit higher, 13% from last year. So again, that row product is kind of sneaking in there, is one of the better performing markets if that's what you have. Alrighty, so let's dive into what's quickly becoming some of the favorite segments for people if they want to dive into a specific part of this update. Is the buyers, sellers, and for the greater Calgarian. What does this all mean to me? So for buyers, if you want to be in your home before Christmas, as many people are trying to do here in this kind of last phase of the market, you've got a great opportunity. Tons of properties to look at. It's also nice to be buying now before the snow comes in the early winter, because guess what happens? It covers up the deck. It covers up the lawn and the landscaping. So now you actually get to see what you're buying and not get shocked in the spring. So that's a great time to see everything and see it in a great light. And overall inventory will decline after September. We usually see a bit of a bump in September again in inventory, and then your choices get a little bit more limited from end of September all the way through to basically February. So if you're wanting lots of choice, now is a perfect time to do that. Okay, now for the sellers. You're getting sick and tired of me telling you this, but it's about getting a great price to market day one. Please, no playing with the market if your truly intention is to sell before the super slow months that come December and January. Nearly 40% of all the homes that have sold this year have sold in their first week on market, but then it really slows up, right? So hit the market with a great price, and what that's telling me is there's buyers waiting for you, right? There's enough buyers to pounce on it right away. But other than that, it's a slow process. And we're seeing also the sale price to the list price ratio starting to drop off a little bit because things are sitting longer, which means you're probably going to be expecting 3.5% to 4% off list price. Now, here's one other thing for you as the sellers. As mentioned above, you have less competition once October hits, and the amount of buyers actually stay out there October and November, and they really start to step away December and January. We see normally September, October, November's numbers of sales being very close to each other. So that's a good thing for you, but if I were you, I wouldn't take that chance and say, maybe I'll wait to see that competition fall away, because you never know what's going to happen. Your picture, your financial picture is something I can't be a part of from a macro view here, so you only know what's best for you. But if the intention is to sell, get it out there and get her going. All right, last is the greater Calgarian. What does all this mean? August numbers held fairly strong in comparison to last year. The last 3 months have been better in relation to last year than the rest of the whole year. So where we painted this picture early in the year that I'm not sure what's going to happen because sales started so slow and we were so far off of prior years, that gap is really closed. And these last 3 months haven't been strong, but they've been stronger. So that means, again, nothing too negative in regards to home ownership and equity. But we will see our pricing month over month continue to decline all the way now until the spring market. This is normal, so don't worry so much about it. We've closed the gap. You're sitting okay. Hottest market segment. There's a ton of data here, and I'm not going to bore you with it. But the one thing to note is there's this ratio that I look at, is sales that happen in a community or a district and property type. How many sell versus the new listings that have come on the market? The higher percentage of sales to new listings, good thing. And we peaked just last month, and now we're starting to fall away. So the percentage of new listings that come to market that do sell within that 30-day period within that month is starting to drop off. And we're seeing it across the detached, the apartment, the semi. The row is the one shining star again, that it's actually starting to pick up. Better sales to new listings. So watch for that. Okay, as far as hot communities, well, there's none that are really hot right now, unfortunately, but there are some doing better than others, and that's what I'll point out. Silver Springs up in the northwest, the Hamptons, where I'm sitting right now, Upper Mount Royal, Erin Woods, and Fairview are all faring very nicely. The other thing that we look at is also months of supply, and if a community has a short month of supply, it's doing very well. A couple others that weren't on this list are Deer Ridge, North Haven, and Westgate. So those three have also done very well and continue to perform well and well above the averages. All right, so I'm going to wrap up with the last few things. So number one was this. Really, there wasn't a lot of stuff to talk about this month. Not a lot of new items that we haven't heard this year, but the theme continues. So it's stay the course, but we're going to be watching this final quarter of selling quarter pretty intentionally. And if there's anything that's going to change, you're going to hear about it here. Number two is this. Like that giant graph, that really wide one I shared earlier, as always, price points, property types, locations, the performance is varying so widely across all of them. So make sure you know what market you're in before we start to set those mental expectations, whether you're a buyer or a seller, about what's going on. And then the third and the last one is this. What we see from now till the end of the year is expected to be something like this. This is a scenario that I'm painting and I'm throwing it out there. September, we expect another month where the inventory climbs a little bit. And then we start to see it decline all the way into January. But at the same time, we tend to see sales continue at about August pace in September, October, and November. Then what happens in December and January is sales drop off in a big way. They become about 2/3 of what we're seeing in these last few months, those months. So that's a significant reduction. So what this means is these next 90 days is always a really good and fairly healthy buying, selling season. So both the buyers and the sellers out there will feel a sense of calm, no major ups or downs for these next 90. So thanks again for spending your time with me for our monthly market report. We're going to see you next time, and maybe even hopefully sooner. Come by, check out our office at 210-7015 McLeod Trail. We'd love to give you a tour and show you what we're up to, and even pour you a beer. Anyways, have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk to you very soon.